Hey everybody, it's Belinda Maston here in the MIA room at Jeremy Ranch Elementary School. I'm a volunteer mum and I'm going to teach you how to make first grade owl. And yeah, it's a really fun project. The biggest thing I think you'll learn is that we've tried this we've tried this with different clay. This is the grey clay that goes white after it's been bisque fired. This is the owl itself. We found that a lot of parents and a lot of kids actually prefer the red clay. Now, the disadvantages of using a red clay is that it is really messy. It leaves a mark on your hands. So go ahead and use your rags to clean the table, to clean the kids' hands, and then rinse them in the buckets. It does get a little messy, but it's worth it in the end. They look really cute. I don't have an example on me right now to show you, but the first step is to get your clay. Now we have two types that are 06 fire. You don't really need to know that, but we have a red clay and a terracotta clay. You can use either one of them. They both look really cute. They're just a slight variation in colour. And they fire at 06. But the people who are working the kiln should know that, so you don't have to worry about anything. And basically the only thing we do is after a bisque fire, we like to put on some clear glaze. So have it bisque fired and then you can put this clear glaze on. We're going to have a small pint of it that's in the lower cabinet that you can use. It's just green in colour when you put it on, but when it's actually fired, it goes clear and it looks really good. So I would recommend just pouring it into one of these cups and brushing it on. Now you, the volunteer, can do it depending on the time, or the kids can do it if they want to, but it's not a fun job. It's just a matter of painting it on the owl, and it comes out kind of, it gives it a little bit of a gloss. So the first thing I'd recommend starting with is getting your clay block. It's really good if you can get a block that hasn't been touched. Sometimes clay is cut different ways. Some of them are cubed and they're cut deeper. You really need to have a nice straight block. Sometimes you'll have these pieces that are on here. You can go ahead and use these, but I would recommend at least a tennis ball size, and then you'd have to squash it down and roll it out in the hope that it will actually fit this stencil. So you can do that, but I like to pre-prep the actual clay before you even go into a lesson. You need to cut it into sections before and know how many children you have in that class and have it ready to go. So I like to cut probably just a little over 2 mil, about half an inch. My handy dandy helper suggested just then. So it doesn't have to be perfect, and don't stress out too much if you get it crooked. It's nice to have somebody on the other end who's guiding that wire all the way through. I've been doing this for a while, so I can cut it pretty straight, but it takes a little practice, so you may need someone to help you put it on and then guide it through on the sides. So you're looking at a piece about that thick. Now, go ahead and try and cut all of your pieces before you go into the class. Then leave them in the block and then just put it back together again. Make sure all the air's out and use your little clip to clip that. Now, if you don't clip it, the whole block is ruined. It's just going to dry out. It's going to be no good to anyone, and that's kind of sad. So make sure that that's clipped and there's no air in it. So you'll be left with something like this. This is really easy to use. It doesn't have to be wedged. You're halfway home if you've already got it at this point. So the kids get it, and it's a matter of slapping it down, turning it over, and then smoothing out any cracks that might appear. Now you can do it this way. I'm going to show you 2 techniques. This is one. This is the first technique. I like this technique, but some kids can't manage this very well. Some kids can. You can make your own decision on what you want to go ahead and do. So the reason why you keep flipping it is actually making it elongated. It's lengthening the piece of clay, but at the same time, it's stopping it from sticking onto the table. Now just get it long enough. This has been cut previously, but that's okay. You just fill it in with your fingers. And then just get the kids to look at the stencil, and if it's not long enough, then keep throwing it gently in that manner. It's an easy technique. It works really effectively. Now this piece, as you can see, is being cut and it's opening up like that. If you find that kids, normally you don't want to have a piece that's already cut like that, so you go ahead, if that happens to your piece, I would cover that up, use that for pieces for the kids. And they can use that for eyes and beaks or whatever. Go ahead, get your clay block back out again and cut another piece. Someone like me could probably fix that really quickly, but for a child it could take, 10 minutes or more. So it's probably better just to go ahead and cut another piece for them. Oh, see, that one's been cut too. They've cut this piece all the way down to here. You can see right here. So if that happens and you find that these pieces are breaking in half like that, go ahead and try a different technique. You don't want to waste all this clay. You need to use it. So I'll show you another way of fixing that. You just wedge those two together. Now you have to have this prepped before you go into class, because if you don't have it prepped, then the kids are going to take forever to do this. So have it ready for them, and so put it into a tennis ball shape. You can use these tools to clean the table off. They're really handy. And if that's really sticking to the table, it means you've got too much moisture on the table. So make sure you have a dry rag and a wet rag. I actually only have a dry one right now, wet one right now. My handy dandy helper here is going to go get me a dry one. Woohoo! Okay, so I'm just going to make sure that's really dry so it doesn't stick to the table, and I'm going to keep on wedging. Now this is the ram's head wedge. You as a volunteer will have to learn how to do this. You throw it down on the table and you push, and then you flip it with your fingers like this and push, flip, push, flip, push, and it creates this ram's head shape. It's really good to know. It gets all the air bubbles out, and then you just flip it over to the side and do it again. It's really important to get those air bubbles out, especially with this kind of clay. It'll hold air bubbles into it. Okay, so once it's been somewhat wedged, you can go ahead and shape it into a ball, or even to a cube. Cube's fine. Cube might be easier for kids. Maybe a flat cube, maybe just like a square. That'll work. And then you just cover it, put in a piece of plastic, and then it's ready for class. Clean that up again. Wipe it down with your wet rag. And then dry it with your dry rag. Okay, so at this point, let's say that we have our piece. I was showing you that other technique. I'll go back to that in a second. I'm just going to put these here now. At this point, the kids should be learning how to use a rolling pin in first grade. It's a little bit harder, makes it a bit more challenging. It's a different technique. We like to use these rulers to know how deep your piece should be. So we use them as a guide on either side. So take your cube or your flat piece of square like this. Make sure there's no cracks in it, smooth it out. Get your rolling pin, and don't worry if it looks brand new. You're going to have it back in this state when you put it back in the cupboard. But at the moment, go ahead and tap, 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 and then gently roll without going over the edges. I always tell the kids not to go over the edges, because if they go over the edges, it's going to be really uneven and squashed. And then get them to pick it up and flip it over. That's really important, because otherwise it will stick to the table. again, back and forth, and really soft on the sides, and they can do the other direction as well, and then get them to pick it up and flip it over. Now the goal is to be able to put this on there, so get them to keep on doing it. And then pick it up and flip it. If we do it one too many times, it will stick to the table. And get them to look at their stencil while they're doing it. Now, if it's a little bit thicker than the actual rulers, it's okay if it's just a little bit thicker. But if it's too thick, then it will take a lot longer to dry in the kiln, which is really not what we want. They may need to use both hands to pick it up so they don't split it in half. And that's looking really good right now. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. Then you go ahead and you put your stencil right on top. Now, as you can see with these rolling pins, it won't go past that, and that's exactly where we want it to be. We don't want it to be any thinner than these two rulers, otherwise it will break. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. Now, if it does stick to the table, get the children to put their hands up, and you as the parent can actually just use one of these tools to gently wedge it up using one of these tools, and that will help to lift that up. Now once they have cut that pattern out, let's put the pattern back on. If it really gets stuck to the table, then you'll have to start again. And then I really do like toothpicks for cutting tools, and even in first grade the toothpick is still actually ideal. I think it's when they get to probably about 4th grade or maybe even 3rd grade, they can start using the little plastic knives that we have. But right now, their hands can really only handle the toothpick. And it's a really good cutting tool. Get them to hold the stencil down and cut that out. It's okay if it's not exact. I kind of like it when they're not exactly perfect. Now this excess here will come in handy to make the beak and the actual eyes. So get them to take this off. Now this is a really important step. You need to get them to pick it up, turn it back over and put their name on it, preferably down the bottom part of it. So I would get them to just write their name right down here, and then I would put the teacher's name. So Guthrie, let's say, one of my favourites, I tell you. She is phenomenal. She's now no longer with us. She's a reading teacher, but taught both my girls, and a phenomenal teacher, like most of Jeremy Ranch teachers are. Guthrie, and 1st grade. Just like that. Then they can turn it back over and start working on their eyes. So get them to put that gently aside with a damp rag over the top, and then they can have probably 2 grapes. Actually, they're probably a little bit bigger than a grape, just a little bit bigger. Golf ball. Yeah, golf ball would be a good size. Maybe no, actually I think they're probably a little bit bigger than a grape. A big, huge, one of those really tasty grapes. What do they call those?
The globe.
I don't know, but they're really good. So I'd probably go maybe that size. And let's take these away. And I like to have a clean, I always get them to wipe with the dry rag afterwards. And I just like them to gently push down with their palm of their hand and flip and tap and flip and tap and flip and tap. And then you can put the eyes on like this. I would actually make that a little bit thinner. Try and make it the same thickness as the owl. And then I'm going to go ahead and spray. This is a vinegar bottle. Really important to use this. It breaks down the molecules of the clay. It works like a slip. It's a cheap version of a slip without making a slip. And I spray it directly on. And you can spray it on here, but it's not necessary. I think that might be enough for both, but you can if you want. And then I do the wet wiggle. I call it wet wiggle, and get them to wiggle it. Twist. Sometimes you're twisting it and it sticks on. You should be able to grab it and it stays put. And go ahead and do the other one. Tap, 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 flip. Tap, 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 flip. Now, it might not be an exact circle, but it's all dependent on their actual ball that they make. If they make a nice round ball, it's going to be a nice flat circle most of the time. And if it doesn't, it's kind of cute if they're not exact. You see how cute it is if they're not exact? That's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect or symmetrical. I kind of like that it's a little different. And it's a wet wiggle, twist and stick again. And there are the eyes. Now you have a little bit of clay left. Go ahead and put a beak on. Beaks are really easy if you just do a little triangle. But kids can do whatever they want as long as it's not too thick. Because remember, if it's too thick, it's going to take too long to dry. And then they'll get frustrated because they won't be able to get their clay back, their pottery owl back. Okay, so that looks pretty cute. I'm going to go ahead and stick that on. Ta-da! Wet wiggle, twist and stick. And then you can start decorating. Now I would take away the toothpick at this point because you don't really need it. Well, you can use it for later, but right now I'll just take that away. That's your cutting tool. I would get your paddle pop stick. Actually, that's what Australians say. They call these paddle pop sticks. I believe you guys call them popsicle sticks. So get your popsicle stick out, and you can create really cute decorations by pushing these. I'll show you in a second. I'll just create the wings. There's one wing here, and then another wing here. And then some kids like to just poke little holes, not all the way through, just for to give it the illusion that they're little kind of feathers coming out. Or any kind of pattern really. The kids can do swirls, whatever they want to do. There's no rhyme or reason to it really. It's just another pattern. Okay, and then sometimes you can do like circles in the eyes here. Or whatever the kids want to do. They might want to create something different, but you can do this and then they can do it like that. And that looks kind of cute. Just, you don't have to push it too hard. I guess you have to keep telling the children not to push too hard because it doesn't take much to make a pattern in there. And then these make a really cute feathery look where you can just gently get them to push them just the top part down. Not too hard though, because you don't want to squash the owl. Making sure that that's still, you can still lift it up. Because sometimes they can push it really hard and then it sticks to the table and they can't get them up. And that can be a pain too. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And then we like to hang them. We have these really cute wires that we have in the MIA room. And you'll find them over here. They're in the wire drawer. And once this has been bisque fired,
Ears.
Yep, and you can draw little ears on as well, which are really simple. You just do that or whatever the kids want to do. Really, you don't have to do it the way it shows in the curriculum. You can do it, they can do whatever they want. And then you can put a hole here. Again, make sure that it's a little bit bigger than the actual, bit thicker than this tool, because it will shrink when it's being fired. You can put the holes here or you can put the holes under the ears. It's your choice. And just gently make sure that it's not stuck to the table and that the name is still on there nice and clear. You might have to just gently go over the top of it. And then put that in for a bisque fire. And then when it comes out, the kids can then put their glaze on top, and then you'll put it in for a glaze fire. And at the end, you can feed this wire through those holes, and ta-da, there's your clay owl.